Well, all I can say after reading your two books, Goddesses Never Age by Dr. Christiane Northrup and Money, a Love Story by Kate Northrup, you've got some serious goddess life force running through your genes. So indulge me in this epic monologue for a moment because there's a lot to cover with both of you, and I want to at least make an attempt to convey a tad bit of your gorgeousness to our audiences. So I need to just introduce you both. And Dr. Northrup, a board-certified OBGYN, former surgeon, New York Times best-selling author, pioneer and visionary on the forefront of all things women's health and pleasure seeker. Considered a renegade at one time, thankfully your lifelong work connecting all aspects of our health, body, mind, and spirit, is a more accepted conversation today. I want to thank you for initiating that conversation and for not giving up on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Kate Northrup is a creative entrepreneur, business mentor, speaker, writer, and self-proclaimed personal growth junkie. With a wonderful philosophy, if you free yourself financially, you can be fully present to your purpose on the planet. And to begin with, well, I think I mentioned this to you earlier, you two only highlighters. I am like dried out after going through these books. Off the bat, I want to talk about two things before I started reading either of them that I absolutely loved. Dr. Northrup, in your acknowledgments, I thought it was so absolutely fabulous that the first person that you note in the acknowledgments is yourself, and the trajectory of actually writing a book, and how fabulous to point that out. You wrote, and this was about a previous book you had written.
Right.
I felt as though I were hiking up a mountain overgrown with brush and strewn with treacherous rocks, and there were no trails, but I was compelled and I succeeded. Karmic debt paid. And that's just fabulous, and thank you for acknowledging yourself first. Kate, you had me at title, Money, a Love Story. I mean, it was fabulous. And I loved your foreword, that you included a foreword written by your mother, not just because it was written by your mother, but because it recounts the moment that you sat with your husband shortly after the birth of Kate in the office of your financial advisor doing the quote-unquote responsible thing
Right.
to map out your financial future. And you wrote, Western culture has long operated under the notion that frugality is a function of morality. What that may sound like financial planning to some, translated to the following to you. Right now, restrict every pleasurable aspect of your life that costs money, scrimp and save for the next 30 years, then and only then will you be able to live well once you retire. Put your life on hold, live later. And that conversation sets the stage for today. So thank you for sitting down with Best Self magazine to celebrate our very special anniversary issue. And we've dedicated this issue to the two of you and built a theme around you. Well, I should say the 2.5 of you.
I know the baby is kicking right now.
Oh, Steve wants to get in on the action. Got 2 cents in there, right? And this issue is dedicated to the dawn of a new conversation, and a dawn, like the birth of a new way, a new approach, welcoming new conversation, and of course, new life. And in reading these books, I thought that this was a beautiful coming full circle healing. And very shortly, Kate, you are going to be sitting with your husband in the office of a financial advisor. And I would, beg to say that it may be a very different conversation than the one that your mom was having. So maybe this is a good place for us to start.
That's funny. I just forwarded her the name of my current financial advisor. And I said, I love this woman, and perhaps this is someone you could interview. So that is very interesting.
It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we did just have our session with our lawyer to talk about wills and business and, with a new baby, what do you do, and all of that stuff. And getting, what I realized in that conversation is when you get those logistical things set up and the structures set up around your life, whether it's the legal, the financial, those are the structures like a good foundation for a house. And then you have the sort of emotional spaciousness to talk about things that you really want to talk about, which is not wills, probably. It's like evolution and and pleasure and all of those things. So I think having those conversations is so critical. And in the spiritual personal growth world, oftentimes it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about money. I'll just, pray and then it'll come. And it's like, not, you actually do need to meet with a financial advisor, but you don't have to listen to everything they say
Right.
as well. You can still run it through your own inner guidance system.
Right.
Yeah.
The first thing that my financial person told me, and I went through many, because I didn't like the, restrict that stuff.
Right.
She told me to read a book called Beyond the Grave. Best thing I ever did. I read about how people fought over dogs, how families were completely torn apart because of one little summer house. And so I'm one of those people who actually likes estate planning. First of all, I think we're immortal, so it doesn't really matter, and you probably come back as your own great-grandchild. So for me, taking care of those details, and also, by the way, in perpetuity means about 30 years. So we forget. I mean, when I look at people who want these big monuments to themselves, like, why? You're gone.
Yeah.
You're gone. My brother was talking to me about...
Because you can't take it with you.
Yeah. Before he had a grandson, people said, well, what do you think about, there's no one who's going to carry on the family name. He said, what do I care? I'll be dead.
Right. What am I worrying about? Right.
Really?
That's funny.
It was.
So in an effort to streamline this interview and to pull in both of you into this conversation, I'm going to guide us through an ad hoc, I would say my version of a Jeopardy game, where I'm just going to, I've culled wonderful quotes from both of your books, and I'll just throw them out in categories, and we'll just kind of have a goddess soul chat. So category number 1, re-scripting a new conversation. It was really exciting to go back and forth between both of your books, and connecting, the one theme that was really pervasive was this theme of connecting the dots between the aspects of our life, whether it's and the role that we play in those aspects, whether it's our aging, our health, our vitality, our bank accounts, and reclaiming our power and reclaiming the power to make choices. Dr. Northrup, you said, you're rewriting how we're going to experience the aging process. And I loved how you were calling people out on the myths of always saying something, it's just a part of aging, and how you're really imploring people to stop saying, I'm having a senior moment.
Right.
And the power of that. And so one of your quotes was, that rounded belly isn't due to age, but to sugar consumption and inflammation catching up with you. It's a sign that you need to give birth to a new you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I realized that all of these things, I don't even use the term aging, because aging begins the moment you're born.
Right.
So we use growing older, and as Mario Martinez says, growing older is inevitable. Aging, which I equate with deterioration and decay and decline, is optional.
Right.
Is optional. So every year my eyesight gets a little better, and my optometrist can understand it. Because built into the medical profession is this absolute rock-solid belief that at a certain age, chronologic age, things start to fall apart. But if you look at, in science, the graphs of, let's say, bone density, so you'll have age over here, time over here, and it's always a scatter. So there's always some 85-year-old with the bone density of a 23-year-old. I've always been interested in the outliers, because if there's one, it means that's possible for everyone.
Right. So it's really like, if you're going to accept that, then if you accept that, at 40 years old my eyes are going to go here and I'm going to need this.
That's it.
Then you're self-prescribing it.
And in fact, beliefs are more powerful than our genes.
Right.
Beliefs in fact set up the environment through which our genes are expressed. And so we have these cultural beliefs. Like another one is fixed income. After a certain age, I'm on a fixed income.
Right.
So it drives
I know, I
the
hate that term.
entire industries.
Right.
You know,
I know,
I
it's so-
expect to, like Louise Hay always said, every year
You mean
my
Louise
income.
Play? She now renamed herself.
Louise Play.
Nancy just told me she renamed herself. No, it's Lulu Play.
Lulu Play.
Lulu Play.
Okay, that's right.
Go Louise.
Hilarious.
Right?
Yes. She's been an inspiration to me forever.
Right.
And she just said every year my income increases. And guess what? It does.
Right.
Now remember, this is
I
a
know.
high school dropout who was sexually abused, who gave up a baby for adoption, or whatever the PC term is for that. She had a baby, someone else adopted. So she did that, and had cervical cancer and all of that. And so if there's anyone...
And started Hay House at 16.
That's
Yeah.
right. So if there's anyone who really should be on a fixed income and deteriorating, it would be Lulu Play.
Right.
But she isn't.
No way. I know, and you also quoted Mario Martinez as saying, old age is the only disease you can catch by imitating its symptoms.
Yes.
Snap.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Right?
So the truth of the matter is, I am taller than I was 20 years ago.
That's all that Pilates.
It's the Pilates and now the resistance flexibility with Bob Cooley. It's the fascia.
Right.
The fascia is where the belief system is housed in our body. Do you remember, you probably didn't see this, the second Superman movie with Chris Reeves, where they found all of the history of the world was in crystals in this special crystal cave. Well, I actually think that's the truth. The crystal is the fascia in the body
Right.
and the bones and the teeth. It's all in there. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And you can change it.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it. And Kate, you had the best terms in the book. Loved it. You're so sassy and funny, and in your book you're dealing with the healing of financial lineage, and I love these terms like financial energy leaks and stinking thinking and thought virus and martyrdom is so 1250. And I could go on forever. I had so much fun, so much laughing when I was reading your book, which is really refreshing, especially when you're talking about money.
Yeah.
And I loved when you said, I no longer see living within my means as limiting and deprived. I see it as loving myself. I think that is one of the most powerful things you said in that book. I want to say it again. I no longer see living within my means as limiting and deprived. I see it as loving myself.
It's such an important piece because when I was in my early 20s living in New York, I had gotten myself into a lot of debt. Every month I spent more than I made. And I was living the American dream, right?
Especially in New York City.
On credit cards.
Right.
And I thought I needed to look a certain way, wear certain clothes, go to certain events. And what I realized is every time somebody said, well, you need to spend within your means, I was like, that feels so awful and
Right.
so heavy and so limiting. But I realized that when we continually spend beyond our means or continually do anything that's not really in our highest interest, it is actually, even in a subtle way, self-hatred or a way of denigrating ourselves. And I realized if I could just make financial well-being a priority in the same way that I enjoy going to get my nails done or going to lunch with a girlfriend. Like if I could put it in that category in my head, then maybe I would actually do it. And so that changed everything. And I found that the more fun and the more play we can bring into our finances, the more we'll actually interact with them because we want to do things that are fun.
Well, it was really just the twisting of that semantic of how you look at it, because when I read that really hit me. And I loved how you offered up that create a money for me account. Just shift how you're looking at that, as opposed to feeling I'm going to decline, I'm going to deprive myself. Just shift, flip it. Right?
Yeah.
Moving on to category number 2, the power of our words and thoughts. Most people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. Christiane, you said, your thoughts and beliefs are the single most important indicator of your state of health. Your thoughts and beliefs are the very first place you need to look when anything goes wrong in your body. Get rid of the idea of health as the absence of illness. I love that.
Yeah. Health is our natural state.
Right.
But if you can imagine the way obstetrics is done is a normal labor and delivery is a retrospective diagnosis. So everything is set up for a potential disaster.
Right.
And therefore, that's
What
the
if-
belief and the beauty
Right.
of watching my daughter go through pregnancy. Is when she went to see the midwife said, "Well, you haven't asked me this one question that everyone asks."
I was like,
What's the
what
question?
question? And she said, well, most people want to know, because we're going to do a home birth, and most people want to know what the safety precautions are, what sort of equipment we bring, and what's the backup plan in case you need to be transferred. And I was like, oh my gosh, it never occurred to me to ask that question
So,
because I
right.
just, my assumption is that my body knows how to do it.
Right.
Yeah, and that belief is so ingrained because she grew up in an environment where birth was just normal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's such an amazing point. And you also said that we're taught that anything pleasurable is suspect.
yeah.
you-
When you hear the word pleasure, what do you
Right.
think of? Sex. You
Right.
think of sex.
Dirty.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
And you think
yeah.
it's a guilty pleasure.
Yeah,
It's sinfully delicious.
right.
We're having too much fun. Drop dead gorgeous.
Mhm.
Die laughing. It was so interesting when you pointed that out. I thought, how many times those phrases roll off of our tongue without actually contemplating what we're saying.
Yeah, what we're saying is there needs to be a ceiling
Right.
on ecstasy.
Right.
And if you get close to it, you do one of three things, which Gay Hendricks talks about, which is you get sick, you have an accident, or you pick a fight to bring you back down
Right. Can't
to
have too much fun.
to the level
Right.
that you have been taught the bandwidth that's acceptable. So you cannot get too happy, but you don't get too sad either, because there's people who grow up in homes where if you're sad as a kid, buck up, you're
Right.
okay.
Right.
Or no one needs to see you cry.
Stop your
So there's-
crying. Yeah.
so
I'll
there's
give you
the-
something to cry about.
So
Yes.
there's a bandwidth. So the truth
Right.
is that illness becomes
Right.
the only acceptable way
The outlet.
that someone can get care.
Mm.
But if you learn how to just raise the ceiling on
Right.
joy and pleasure, you're flooding your body with nitric oxide, which is the uber neurotransmitter, and it balances all your serotonin, and then you don't need Prozac. And but when you do that, be prepared that the tribe you've created at that bandwidth is going to try to bring you down.
Right.
You just have to know that.
We were mentioning before your crabs in the bucket syndrome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Kate, you also highlight the legacy of feeling guilty for our good fortune, and conversely, how we beat ourselves up when for our previous financial choices or if we're in debt. And thank you for connecting the dots of the necessity to address the emotional component of that, and that there is no separation between church and piggy bank.
No, and we make decisions from the emotional part of our brain, which is the limbic, right? And then we back it up with logic. And so when people say to separate money from our emotions, like,
Right.
oh, don't bring your emotions into the boardroom, it's like, it's all emotional.
Right.
And so if you purposefully bring them in
Right.
and are conscious about how you feel about money and how you feel about your past finances and what it brings up for you, and if you clear that stuff out on purpose, then it doesn't come hit you in the ass later because you haven't dealt with it directly. And so that's kind of the, some financial advisors keep Kleenex on their desk, which is great because they know that people will tell them more than they'll tell their therapist.
Right.
And then also people who do your hair as well.
Right.
They will generally be the other
yes,
ones who
yeah,
hold the
exactly.
secrets of the stylist. However,
Just don't tell anybody who does your hair.
exactly. But it's really important to know everybody is emotional about
Right.
money. Some people are just pretending that they aren't. And
Right.
so if we can stop pretending, then that's when we can get into a cool partnership with our money and have it work for us rather than us working for
Well,
it.
we can give ourselves permission to say we have emotions around finances.
Yeah.
And I loved one of the exercises that you have in the book, which is like take a credit card bill and go through the charges and highlight things that make you feel kind of icky,
Yep.
things that make you feel empowered, or if you have credit card debt, zero out the balance and and put it on your vision board and affirm zero
Yeah.
balance credit cards.
Right.
I mean, I love bringing the emotion into it because denying that there's emotion in that is ridiculous.
Yeah. And then that's, of course, what causes illness
Right.
when we deny the emotion.
That's why it's such a good idea to have you two sitting
I
here.
learned
and-
that from her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so category number 3, generosity of spirit. both of these books, seriously, they're powerhouses, go-to books, packed with tactical strategies, wrapped in personal anecdotes and sharing, and full of resources, which I absolutely love, and other people's sites and programs and quotes. Kate, your book is not only full of exercises to redesign our relationship to our finances and a new financial consciousness. I love how you start the book with it's a money quiz, a money love quiz, right? Which we, by the way, we took and we got the same score on.
Oh, that's good.
But I thought what was so powerful is how you also acknowledged that in the past you had a tendency to sort of skip through the exercises in books that you were reading and felt that, well, if I've read it, I've kind of done it. Yeah. But it is really powerful to just kind of get down and dirty with your notebook, your pen, and those exercises and just write that stuff out, because it's amazing what comes up.
Yeah, when you show up, you get a very different experience than when you sort of just breeze over something.
Yeah. Christiane, your 14-day Ageless Goddess program at the end of the book that you've included in there is simply divine. It's dynamic and tactical and empowering and humorous and made me want to run out and learn how to tango. And all I can say is that online program must be fabulous, because I wanted more when I read it. And so everybody check out that online version of the 14-day.
8 weeks, and it's really, it's an
wonderful.
ongoing, I really wanted to create a global movement so that people who are at the height of their power, the height of their value and competence, would not catch the disease of ageism, and then right when they had the most to offer would suddenly be making excuses for themselves.
Right.
Yeah, it's just the worst misuse of resources ever.
Right.
Yeah, and it needs to begin really early. We were talking about that because when Kate was living in New York and I met many of her friends, they were terrified when they were turning 30.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So if they were actresses, okay, if it hasn't
New York City
happened.
again.
Yeah, but it's interesting because that's the media capital of the world.
Right.
So stuff comes out of there.
Right.
And then that affects people. I just found out that the Nielsen ratings, by the way, the only demographic that counts for a Nielsen rating is 18 to 49. And no advertisers will give big money to any other. So you could have 3 billion people watching a program. If they're over 50, then they don't get, no.
Which is ridiculous, because those are all the people who have the money.
You absolutely pointed that out in your book as well, though, that goddesses are now empowered and making choices and spending. They've got more expendable funds, and they're in the marketplace. They're spending money, so it's kind of.
What was the thing about cars? Like, who buys all the cars?
People 75 to death buy 5 times as many cars as any other demographic.
Hello.
Okay, but the car ads always feature someone who's 24 or younger.
Right.
And that group.
And there's a lot of car ads.
Yeah, and there are a lot of car. Now the thing is this: we've got to come up with some really sexy, fabulous people to be in those ads.
Right.
And they're out there, obviously, more and more and more and more, like Tina Turner, for instance.
Right.
Helen Mirren, they're out there. Me, of course.
You could be doing cars.
Yeah, you'd be great. I could just see her in a convertible.
That's
Exactly.
right. That's right.
Category number 4, power of the healer within. Christiane, thank you for highlighting our body's remarkable capacity for self-repair. You said genes are a blueprint, not a destiny. And this one really hit home, because I think we forget of our own ability to repair. And you said it's estimated that 80% of all illnesses begin in the mind. Diseases don't appear out of nowhere. They are quite literally an imbalance in the system that is usually the result of years and years of neglecting to engage in the causes of health, which include pleasure, exalted emotions, and righteous anger, most of which our culture has never taught us.
Right. So what's fun is you get to see what someone got taught and then how she lives her life, which is glorious for me.
Right.
I mean, when I had her, I had to leave my regular practice because it was killing me. And I knew, because I had so many people come in, and I would be able to know that if they keep doing what they're doing, it's not going to get pretty. Plus, I had readings with Carolyn Mace, the medical intuitive, and she said, you were in your energy field was a big ovarian tumor, and if you hadn't left, that's what would have happened. So that stuff is in the energy field before it hits the body. So I have lived my whole life knowing if this continues, this is what's going to happen. Like I know I have dodged a heart attack, I've dodged breast cancer. I was heading down those pathways.
Right.
So if people knew this, but here's what we have, what we believe in our culture. You go to the doctor and get a clean bill of health.
I love that you pointed that out.
Oh my God, what a stupid, I mean,
Right.
no doctor has
Right.
this kind of information.
It's almost like an insurance. Oh, I did my checkup, so I'm good.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm good for another year.
Yeah, so therefore,
Now I can go do whatever I want to do.
that's right.
Exactly.
Whereas functional medicine, which we're
Right.
starting to, and naturopathic
Finally.
medicine is finally looking at, okay, you're not optimal here.
Right.
This is down to 70%. See, remember, medicine, traditional Western medicine, only measures pathology. So the blood tests don't get bad until there's true pathology. Well, guess
Right.
what? You can lose 80% of your kidney function before it shows up on a test.
Wow.
So we've got to really look at that, or we see
Right.
the calcifications of the coronary arteries in the heart. Well, you don't get a heart attack until the vessel is actually
Right.
closed down, but the body's so self-healing that you'll get collaterals coming in all the time. The body is trying so hard to keep you well. It tries so hard.
And you've got to keep it well. I wanted to just quote some more things on this topic because I thought it was fascinating when you mentioned that consider that each of us makes cancer cells every day, but we never know it because our bodies heal themselves.
Yeah, yeah. So here's the thing. So now we have this whole industry of early detection, right?
Right.
Gilbert Welch is a professor at Dartmouth, and he wrote a book long ago called Should I Be Tested for Cancer? Subtitle, Maybe Not.
Right.
And he is a world expert on early detection, and he said that the tumors that are really going to kill you are the ones that come up very quick and move very fast.
Right.
And those are typically not picked up on screening tests. So if you look at mammograms, we now have these high resolution mammograms, and there's a lot of leading edge studies that say they do no more harm than good. But women believe that it is a mammogram that saves their
Right. If
lives.
I do it, then I'm going to be okay.
I'm going to be okay. And we won't get into the complexity of that, but let me just say that mammograms pick up ductal carcinoma in situ, and in studies of autopsies, 40% of women in their 40s who died in car accidents and then they sectioned their breasts, 40% had ductal carcinoma in situ, which Gilbert Welch says something they would die with but never die from.
Yes.
And once you find it,
Mhm.
you are obligated to do something.
Right.
So the number of women having prophylactic bilateral mastectomies now has, I think, doubled in the last 10 years.
Well, that was also staggering. You said that 70,000 women were overdiagnosed with breast cancer in 2008 alone.
Correct.
I love your voice in this where you said, stop looking at your breasts like a search and destroy mission.
That's
You
right.
know, constantly feeling
Minesweepers.
for.
Oh my
Right.
God, it's going to kill me.
Right.
That's
Right.
probably not a good way to approach your breast,
Right.
given that the hands are extensions of your heart.
Right.
So you can be far more healing with a central breast massage.
Right.
And just take off your bra at night and, hello girls, you're safe with me,
Right.
and how you feeling, and
Right.
this feels really good, and then you're increasing circulation and your immunity is getting
Right.
better. How about that?
Right.
I mean, can you imagine a
Right.
guy going for his testicles every night? Are they going to kill me?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
probably not going to happen.
Right.
They don't
Right.
do that. They value those family
Right.
jewels. We're taught not to value
Yeah.
these
Right.
things, or worse. This is the new symbol of the modern day martyr, is the gorgeous
Interesting.
celebrity person
Right.
who sacrificed her female organs for the good of her family.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's the new
Right.
martyr.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said, here's the truth. Your thoughts and beliefs have a far bigger impact on your health than your medical test scores do.
Now, I know this because
Right.
I've been in this biz long enough
Right.
to have seen absolute miracles, not just one. And the medical literature is full of documented cases of spontaneous, so-called spontaneous remission from every known disease, but it's never spontaneous.
Right.
There's always something that person did, usually connected with divine love, the part of them that's God, their higher self. And oftentimes they said, well, I'm immortal, so if I die, I die. And then they live. It's really interesting. And then when they go back to the doctor, Anita Moorjani, case in point, who died of terminal lymphoma.
Exactly.
And I said, so Anita, do you go to the doctor anymore? She goes, no, they keep telling me I'm in remission. She said, I already died, so I'm not exactly afraid.
And that's a powerful story.
It really is.
I just heard they're making a feature film out of it.
Oh,
really?
that's wonderful.
Yes.
That's
Cool.
wonderful.
Isn't that exciting?
That's great.
So exciting.
Yeah.
And Kate, most people who admit to having money problems, you said in your book that most people who admit to having money problems think that the way to start the whole process of fixing them is by learning more of the right actions to take around their money. But from what I've learned, these folks are approaching it from the entirely wrong direction. The most important place to start is also the one that's most often overlooked, ourselves.
Mm. Well, so it's the same thing with health, right? We think like, oh, well, if I go get this, that, and the other test and my numbers are good, then I'm going to be okay. But really the causes of health are who we hang around with, the food we put in our body, how happy we are in our careers, and those aren't the things we think about when we deal with our health. So with our money, we think like, oh, I need the right financial advisor. I just need the correct budget. Like if I could just get my grocery spending and my household spending and whatever. I have made a budget one time and I never followed it. So I just I get people asking me budgeting advice.
People always feel comfortable have a budget.
And
They
it's
love
like,
to want a
because
budget.
it's the illusion of control,
That's the illusion,
right?
right.
And money, just like our health, it's an energetic thing. And so it's like, when we try to only do the spreadsheet and when we do only the numbers, usually what happens is we don't actually keep up the actions that cause abundance. Same thing with our health. If we just do the doctor thing, then we don't actually form the sustainable habits that cause health, because we're not going inside and figuring out, well, why is it that I spend more than I make every single month? Or why is it that I find myself eating a hot fudge sundae at midnight every night? What's going on there? So those are the places we need to go, not let me get the test or let me get the right spreadsheet.
Right. Connecting those dots again. Okay, so the final category, number 5, everything leads home to the house of self-love. Christiane, the message of illness and pain may be, it's time to bring healing love into your energy field. You've been in emotional pain long enough. Let me turn up the volume by creating physical pain so you'll pay attention and take care of your heart. Quote unquote, to get something off your chest means to free up your heart, lungs, and your shoulders from burdens of feeling unloving and unloved.
Yeah. The heart is the actual biggest endocrine organ in the body. We don't think of it as that. It is the part of us that sets the tone for everything else. I've always said that the mind thinks it's in control. The left hemisphere is sure it's in control. The heart wins. The heart always wins. So if you're constantly stuffing down heartache or feeling bad about yourself or whatever it is,
We're not
the
following
heart,
your heart.
the heart will win. The heart will win. And I know from whence I speak, because I abandoned myself to heal my mother when I was 5, and she lost a baby. And then I didn't get that. I didn't realize that until the fascia work that started later. And how many babies do you have to deliver? How many women do you have to save before you've saved yourself?
That's amazing. Yeah, you've got to save yourself first.
Yeah. But you don't know that as a
Yeah,
little kid.
of course.
And that's how you get into, though, the big picture of it.
Right.
You see, because what we're saying here does not make logical, linear sense.
Of course.
So I believe we choose our parents, we choose the circumstances of our birth. It's the only way to play the game. Everything else will make you feel like a complete victim.
Well, and of course, as children, all we want to do is be loved, and we'll do anything
Yeah.
to feel that love. And sometimes we get it all a little twisted around, but
Yeah, well,
But
we
it's-
become the human doings instead of
Right,
human beings.
right, especially women.
Yeah.
And Kate, you said the root of all problems is lack of self-love. But it never occurred to me that my money challenges had anything to do with that, and that taking care of myself in this way has nothing to do with deprivation or limitation, but everything to do with self-love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was really powerful.
We can take the same action, drinking a glass of water, paying our taxes. We can do those very same actions and do them from a place of, I have to do this to be a good citizen, or I have to do this because my doctor told me to be healthier, I need to drink more water. Or we can do it from a place of like, I am hydrating my cells, from a place of love. You could even say something loving into the water, like that guy. What's that guy's name?
Masaru Emoto.
Masaru
Yeah,
Emoto.
messages in water.
And we can pay our taxes from a place of, this is my contribution to my country, and I bless this money that it goes towards the environment and repairing our roads and education. That's what I do when I pay my taxes, because if I get into the whole thing of what the government is doing, that's a wormhole.
Can't control that. Can't control that. I know.
I bless my money for where it's going. And so it's not so much that, yes, a lot of the actions will be different, but it's how we do them that matters more.
Right. And that's the whole conversation, is how we do all of this.
Yeah.
And starting from that place, emanating from that place of that little girl deep inside and that self-love, whether it is your piggy bank, whether it is, your health or your vitality or your interactions with other people, it's all from that place of self-love.
And
that
turns out that's all the same thing.
Right, exactly. It's just right. So, Christiane, when you started out in your medical career, were you aware of this connecting of dots in all aspects, or was this something that, was there a shift that happens along the way? You were studying traditional medicine, and then you opened up this Pandora's box for us.
I did.
Thank God.
I was aware of all of it because I grew up in a family where my parents ate organic food, and we had a compost heap, and I had a sister who died in a pool of her own vomit. She was born after my mother was on antibiotics the entire pregnancy. Mom was not allowed to hold her.
Oh, wow.
And then another brother was born after that, and he wouldn't eat either. And they signed him out of the hospital against medical advice. And he lived because a nurse came up to my mother in the middle of the night. She said,
"Get him out of here.
I'd get him out of here if I were you. They don't know what's going on." They told my mother he was retarded, all of this stuff. So when I went to med school at University of Buffalo, I interviewed there. And the guy had been the chief pediatrician on my brother's case.
Wow.
And he was sure that my brother was...
Talk about full circle.
Oh, completely. So I learned in childhood the limitations of modern medicine. But my aunt and uncle were both medical doctors. My dad was a dentist. They made fun of him because they thought they were superior. They thought that they were demigods. But they were family. So that was Thanksgiving dinner, and then they had kids who were doctors. So I always loved them as my family, and them as the profession. I remember when I first brought home a boyfriend who was an orthopedic surgeon. My uncle comes in and he goes, "Welcome to the fraternity." You can imagine, and then the fraternity started to get taken over by women. I was one of the first out of the chute on that one, but I always knew there was something more. And then my sister was killed in a car accident before I went to med school. And my mother went to a spiritualist church, and this minister channeled Dr. Andre. Her voice changed, she changed into a different person, and then said, "My grandmother was with my sister in the car when she died." And this was so helpful. Any medium will tell you this.
So just help her.
So we had some real tragedies. I mean, my grandmother, my sister, and my dad all died within a 3-year period. I was in my oncology rotation at Tufts New England Medical Association, and all my patients were dying of GYN cancers. So lightning struck my family, and I realized I didn't have any tools I learned from my medical deity degree, but I did have tools from my own life.
Life degree. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I would sit down on the bed, and I would say everything that's in your heart to this person. None of us has forever. Don't live with any regrets. And so I knew that I had something that needed to be stated. And I remember I've gone through lawsuits. You can't imagine. It's been a very, very difficult path. I won't, I won't sugarcoat it. It was tough. And every time I went to the doctor's mailbox in the doctor's lounge at the medical center, I was certain that the eviction notice would be in there. I was just certain. I always knew I was sort of on borrowed time. I didn't realize till I learned the work of Mario Martinez that the reason was I was stepping beyond the pale of the tribe, which is we'll protect you as long as you prescribe these drugs and do this kind of surgery and do what we're doing.
Do what we say.
But the minute you step outside the pale, you are rewarded with betrayal, abandonment, or shame. So I walked a very, very fine
What gave you the intestinal fortitude to keep going? How did you stay that path? I mean, some people would just say like, okay, this is enough, I'm out. I know what I know, but I don't need to be putting it out into the world.
This, if you look at my astrologic chart, which by the way I think is a blueprint for
Right.
the soul's journey,
Right.
I have Mars and Pluto conjunct in Leo in the second house of Taurus, and that's sort of the mark of a surgeon. Pluto is a very powerful energy. It takes you down to the underworld, and Mars is your zoom zoom. And I have my North Node in Aries on the 10th house cusp, which is like, whoa! I just think it's this, I've been compelled to do it. Frankly, what I believe is I probably blew it in hundreds of lifetimes. I knew stuff, and I just was too weak to
They're like,
say
you're going
it.
back until you get it
Yeah,
out.
that's it. I know I was burned at the stake at least 6 times. My Pilates teacher, we actually, we are in competition of who got drawn and quartered, and I really know that that's
You knew you
true.
had to get it out this time.
I
this
knew.
lifetime.
No, this was it. Plus, I had a default setting. I always had this default setting. Okay, if it doesn't work, I'll play my harp in the funeral home or at a wedding, or I'll be a cocktail waitress. I just knew.
I'm gonna be fine.
I just knew that I had to do it.
Right.
I had to do it. And my family of origin supported me, you see. So I wasn't looking to the medical family to
Right.
support me. My family of origin supported me. And that was extraordinarily important. Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So Kate, growing up in the House of Northrup, you had some pretty big shoes to fill. And I thought it was really powerful, immensely powerful of you to divulge just your own experiences of feeling like a fraud when it's important to share those stories
Yeah.
because I really believe we learn through the sharing of authentic story.
Yeah.
You could put down the 10 steps to do X, Y, and Z to change your financial relationship. But when you share something of your authentic experience, and people can look at you and say, she felt like a fraud, or she felt poorly about herself, or she beat herself up. That was just profound that you shared that in the book. I thought it was
It's so important to tell the truth. It really is incredibly healing for ourselves and others when we say the truth. And then what's so great about the truth is you don't have to remember what you said
right,
because there's only one truth,
right.
or at least your version of it.
Well, then we're not all running around playing at a masquerade ball.
Yeah. And it takes far less energy. You can
Right.
use that energy that you would be spending trying to make up this whole performance of who you are and what really happened. If you take that energy and if you just tell the truth, then that energy can be used for creativity. And it was amazing when I first began to tell the truth to myself and others about my financial situation. It was like, oh my gosh, I had so much energy to build my business and go do all this other stuff instead of all the energy
Free
it takes to
space.
stuff it down.
Right.
It's exhausting.
It's like tidying up your energetic
Yeah.
house,
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Clearing up all the sludge and cleaning out the closets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this question is really for both of you. Just sort of in light of impending birth and new life and being an initiator of a really important conversation, being such a contributor to another conversation, where do you want to see this conversation evolve to? When you think of this new life and this new generation, where would you like to see the evolution?
I really would like more people to have way more people to have the freedom to be home with their families that Kate has. Because she looked at me and her dad, both daughters, and said, that sucked.
But how
Well,
great,
just because they worked all the time,
right,
you know.
but how great that you got to experience and learn that.
I did. I mean, I
Great.
feel so grateful for, everything I've learned and everything that my mom has done, not only to create like the awakening and the opening for all the women, but specifically in my life, because there are some different choices that I've made only because I saw the contrast and I saw, wow, that's one way to do it. And also she was so supportive of a different way. Like you've been laying the tracks for a different way for so long, and I feel like I get to live that different way, in many ways, because you laid that track and there was a lot of permission there. Even if maybe you didn't do it that way when you were having us, I get to say, well, I'm gonna kind of start to be on maternity leave at 5 months pregnant because I just haven't really felt like working that much. And I feel so grateful and privileged to be able to have made that choice, because I was given a lot of access and the tools and the resources and the support, just like
Right.
Mom's family has supported her. You've supported me to say, yeah, go start a business, go learn about financial well-being,
Right.
go create that for yourself. Not saying, oh, well, must be nice, because that's what most people say who are doing it differently than their
Right.
parents is, oh, well, it must be nice for you.
But I want to just point out for you that you designed that for yourself.
Yeah.
That's the really important thing.
Oh, yeah.
You designed that.
Yeah, I
did
did it
you
on
just,
purpose.
Well,
Yeah.
just, talk about that thought
Yeah.
process for a second, because I do think that is such a key.
Well, I read Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, when I was 14, and was introduced to Abraham Hicks by my granny. Actually, my mom's mom introduced
so
the whole
awesome.
family to Abraham Hicks. And
Mhm.
so this whole idea that you create your own reality got implanted in me early enough that I didn't question it. That's what's so great about teaching younger people.
Right.
I taught my little sister the other day that she has the power to heal her tummy ache, and she was 11 at the time, and she was like, okay. There was no fight back about that. And so I learned that, and then I just assumed it was true. I read all these financial books. I learned about cash flow. I learned about the concepts of financial freedom and residual income. I started a business when I was 18 because I knew I wanted to be able to stay home with my family by the time I wanted to have my family. And I wanted to have a stay-at-home husband with me. I didn't want to meet somebody who would be willing to go make the money so I could stay home. I wanted to do it together. So that has been on my mind since the end of high school.
But that's so exciting to me, because I think a lot of time people think, again, going back to your initial meeting with the financial advisor, when Kate was first born, sort of like, you've got to nose to the grindstone and work really hard and save for the future, sort of forgetting about the be here now.
Right.
And designing the now. And so there has been this beautiful evolution. You're very fortunate to have grown up with these conversations. And now just imagine the conversation that your baby's going to be having.
Yeah. And it goes the other way. This is important because Kate and Mike have done so much with internet marketing.
Right.
And understanding the importance of Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all
And
of
platforms.
that. And platforms.
Building your email list.
Yeah, exactly.
I was introduced to all of that.
Right.
And so I'm so grateful for that, because I see how powerful that is. I was in a Facebook group and was sailing into Istanbul on a family cruise that I wanted to do forever. And this woman says, "Happy birthday," all the way from Istanbul, because in the group it's run by an astrologer, and she had my birthday. And we've become fast friends. So I took a picture of all of us in Ellicottville, New York, who were on that ship, my family, sent it to Yashim in Istanbul. That's amazing. I would not have done that if I hadn't had a daughter who understood. First of all, she's got a ton of Gemini energy. It's like the whole world is kind of her workshop. But me understanding how powerful that platform is for what you're doing.
So just further with that conversation, also one other thing I wanted to say, just in noting what you've learned from your daughter and how there's a reciprocity back and forth. It is really important to listen and learn from our children. because they are our teachers. And it's something I've learned along the way with my own son. And sometimes I think that it's my responsibility to teach him this and show him that and direct him here. And every once in a while, he says something so profound it literally knocks me off my feet, especially a teenage boy. They don't say very much. They're grunting a lot and not interested in too much conversation. But he is my greatest teacher. He is my greatest teacher, my greatest gift. And I think that's another thing to really note, that we have to be open to hearing what our children have to say. And again, they come in with a pure conversation.
Yeah, that is really, really, really true. I mean, I trust her ability to give birth completely without a single bit of input from me. I've got no control issues over that. I did want to say that her work is a part of the legacy.
Right.
Gynecology is obviously the study of the pathology of the second chakra, which is all about the energies of money, sex, and power. And when I say power, I'm talking about the ovarian or the testicular balls, going after what you want. That takes balls, we say that.
Right.
Or it takes ovaries. And so your money issues will hit you here in the second chakra. And so Kate's really taken on that part of the legacy. Because this is, think about how many women end up life, well, I mean, when a woman gets divorced, her standard of living goes way down and all of this stuff. This hits us here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful point. You're absolutely right. That's why this is just, you two are amazing. You're absolutely incredible. Sitting here with you today is just so incredibly powerful. And your books, both of your books, I think they're timeless. And I think that they need to be in the hands of young women of all ages. But I just was with two dynamic young women just really going out into the world. And I said to them both last night, you've got to read these books. You've got to read these books. Don't wait. Don't wait until you've shamed yourself financially.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Don't wait until you feel really crappy about your body or your health, or you get a wake-up call. And that's the most powerful message of a new conversation. Get these books, these messages into the hands of our babies.
That's right. And then live as an ageless soul.
Right.
Step out of the age. And I do want to say this, I think it's important. Make 21 the last birthday that you ever celebrate.
Right.
Celebrate your birthdays. We do.
Right.
We love them. But do not put a number on it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's too much power and weight and expectation. Again, going back to you're 40 years old, your eyes are going to decline.
That's
This is
it.
what's going to happen.
That's it.
And it's the same thing. Oh no, you just turned 50.
Yeah.
Right.
And then also the financial, like how many people say, well, I thought I would be further ahead
Right.
That's right.
than I am at this age.
There are all these
And it's like
benchmarks
if you
for
took
failure.
out the age, then you can just be where you are
Right.
and grow from there, as opposed to making yourself wrong for not matching up to who even made that stuff up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also one thing I want to say is that these books are not just for women.
No, they're not. No.
These I know they're goddesses, but you know what? They're for our men too. The conversations that empowered men really need to be having. You mentioned in your book that men, honestly, they need to allow their emotions to come to the forefront, because more than anything, they've also been told, suck it up, stop.
Oh, it's terrible. No,
Right.
it's terrible.
We need to foster that in our men
Yeah.
and our boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But men follow the lead of women.
Right.
So when women rise up, they can uplift the men. It's not going to come from men.
Well, you two.
It's going to come, well, let's say this, it's going to come from the feminine.
Right.
Whether
Right.
that's in men or
Right.
in women, it doesn't
Right.
matter, but it will come from the feminine.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you two are leading an incredible conversation, and I want to thank you for sitting with us and being a part of Best Self and allowing us to celebrate you. And it's just a tremendous honor to read your books, to be here. And again, after I said I read the books, I felt like we were besties. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Our
And we're so
pleasure.
excited. You're going to have to keep us posted.
I will. Thank you.